So we're going to go through this green action plan, and as I say, it looks like this. You've got it in front of you. The idea here is either during the course of the session or later on for you to sit down and say, okay, I've done these things, so it's either not applicable or it's completed, check mark, or I'd like to do this thing, so a little check mark, and then providing yourself with some focus around who would you need to involve in that and when would you like to see that done in the next 6 months, the next year. This is a 2-year plan so that you can start to create a plan of action for yourself. So some interesting things, 80% of the $10 million energy bill in North America for commercial food service and the food service sector is by inefficient, and Debbie already talked about this, food cooking, holding, and storage equipment. I think Dan mentioned this too. You know, when he changed over the kitchen and added some new equipment, he bought some energy efficient quick equipment. It really made a difference to the bottom line. Restaurants that invest strategically can cut their utility costs between 10 and 30%. Hot water can be 50%. We've already looked at that. Nearly 30% of the garbage is waste food, and that the average restaurant can produce as much as 65,000 kilograms of waste. So we need to, and in Canada, we're really huge energy hogs. Among OECD countries, we're like 28th of 29th. I think Iceland is the only other country that uses more energy per capita than people in Canada do. So let's look at this checklist then, and we'll just have a quick look at some of the various components on this list. We're not going to go through every single one because that would be a little bit too time consuming, but we'll look at a few. So some of the things that you can do are looking at those Energy Star qualified fixtures, or anything within your kitchen. If you buy Energy Star, you're going to save significant money. In this particular case, they're talking about even using fixtures that are such as compact fluorescent lighting, and we've talked about how the compact fluorescents do not generate heat, and that's why they're up to 75% more efficient. We can, number 4, if you have, anybody have fluorescent lights, the overhead fluorescent lights in their kitchen? So to be looking at what are those, so there's T12s, which are the oldest kind and the most inefficient, and they're the biggest ones. T8s are the next size down, so the T stands for tube, and the 8 and 12 and 5 stand for the diameter of those lights. So T12s are 12/8, or 12/16 rather, 8s are 8/16, and 5s are 5/16. And the 5s are the most expensive but the most energy efficient. And the 8s are the ones that everybody is moving toward right now. So if you have T12s in your kitchen, you need to get those out of there for sure.
And there's actually a program for that.
Is there really?
Yes,
and who's
through your local hydro authority.
Yes.
And
Okay.
You can do it for free.
There you go. So you can get all of that looked after. Even your exit and your lights for your restaurant. So opening, closed, exit lighting, that sort of thing. By using LED lighting, you can reduce your energy cost by about 85% because those are on nearly all the time. So if you can use those, that can make a significant difference as well. Who in here might be using number 6, occupancy sensors for storage rooms, walk-ins, bathrooms, hallways? Is anybody using those right now? Yeah, so are you using a few?
Yeah, we're using a few. I put my coolers, they shut off for 2 hours from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. All my coolers shut down. Mm-hmm. So we did that to cut out power usage at the beginning of the day.
Right.
And the staff washrooms all have sensors. And the only thing with using them in a public area, I'll warn you, if you've got handicapped people, because they move slower to that area, we had to take it out of our hallway for that reason.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's a good point. Yeah. All right. But yes, sometimes in storage areas, though, that's it's a really good. People have their hands full anyway, and they're not turning the lights out on the way out. So this was a good way of doing that.
There's a lot of stuff in your building that you think because it's not on, it's not drawing any power, and there's so many things that are drawing power.
Have you got an example of something that you?
Well, you know, a simple thing.
Yeah.
You know, you think that that because your fridge and freezers are on a defrost cycle, that they're really not using any power. They're sucking up more because the fans go at a higher speed. So you know what? Just shut them off.
And so how do you do that? Do you do it automatically?
If anybody's got an electric fireplace that's there for, you know, whatever, and they think that because the heat's on, they're only using power for light, it's, if anything with a remote control.
What's called
It's
the
using
ghost
power.
power.
Yes,
It's using
absolutely.
ghost power.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Do you know what we
Yeah.
did at night we started a couple of years ago was coffee machines. Because your coffee machine is instant, pour water in, pour water out.
Mm-hmm.
We started unplugging our coffee machines and our tea machine and blah, blah, blah. And we couldn't believe the drop in power just there, because that coffee machine is like a hot water tank 24/7.
Wow, yes. And not insulated,
And
right?
we on our day off, we make sure everything is unplugged.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
we close Sunday night, everything is unplugged.
Do you have a day off in?
It took a long time to get there.
What do you do on your day off?
Yeah, what do I do?
Do you want to come work at my place so I can have a day off?
So a lot of organizations are also optimizing daylighting or using photosensors so that it will turn lights off and on as the time, or dim lights as the time goes on. Heating and cooling. So we've had some really good ideas here on page 2 of 19 on number 1. Just setting your thermostat. So at 24 degrees for cooling, and then for every degree that you increase that, you're saving 1% of your electricity costs. And for heating, if you set it at 20 degrees, and then for every degree you drop it down, you're saving another 3%. So you can save yourself a significant amount of money there. We've talked about heat air exchange a little bit. So number 4, install a heat recovery air-to-air exchange, so that this is, you're not bringing cold air into the restaurant, so that the heat air that's leaving the restaurant is heating the incoming cold air. Until such time that our landlord comes back and says, this is costing me a mint. So at that time, though, that's when you get together with other tenants and you sit down with the landlord, and this is called kind of a green leasing process, where you negotiate, having a discussion around what kind of changes are going to be made in the building, because you can be working with Hydro and getting some of these free things that's going to have an impact on his bottom line, but you need to make sure that you get some of the benefit associated with that. So working together as tenants with your landlord is the way to do
That was going to
that.
be one of my questions,
Yeah.
is how can I encourage my landlord to do some of these things? Because sometimes it's like 115 degrees in the cafe,
Yeah.
and you're trying to present yourself as a green
Yeah.
cafe, and everyone's walking in saying like, why do you have the heat turned up so high?
Yeah.
It's like it's the thermostats in the basement in a different apartment.
Yeah, yeah.
So
you need to sit down with that person and say, there's some ways that I can help save you some money, but that has to come to me as well. And you can take some of these numbers and involve Hydro in that discussion to sort of show the return on the investment that will be made there. A couple other things on this list that might be of value. So we've talked about kitchen ventilation. So on page 3 of 19 under kitchen ventilation, this idea of having the 2-speed blowers. Does anybody want to talk about that? Because that's an important
Variable
element.
speed?
Yes, having a variable speed.
What variable speed does is, in the summertime, you can turn it a little higher to get rid of the heat, so that your air conditioning system in the rest of the building isn't having to work as hard. And in the wintertime, you can turn it a little lower, so that your furnace isn't having to work as hard because you're taking out less air. But it's still, they both still have to pass the bomb test, I guess, that's done by the fire department.
Yeah.
And there's other ways of the blower can actually be on makeup air as well as on exhaust air.
Yeah. And if you're on with Enbridge, there's a program to actually get these kind of systems in place, and they've got rebates associated with that as well. So you can call up Enbridge, and they call it the Demand Control Kitchen Ventilation System. And there's $1,000 to $2,000 back in getting these systems changed over. So